Hello everyone. Here is the video of discussion between Jordan Peterson and Jonathan Paggio. And they discuss in this clip is titled "Why Jonathan Paggio May Have Convinced Dawkins." They discuss about first part of I will talk about first part of this clip where Jordan Peterson starts to he is expressing his how he understands what happened in the Garden of Eden, and he is saying that the sin came into the world, and that's why there is suffering. And in his understanding, he doesn't say original sin, but he, I think, implies original sin. In his understanding, original sin is pride, and and he is also saying that that it came from Eve to Adam. However, it feels to me that he is not really convinced in that. However, I think divine principle has a more has better answer to this question about what is the fruit or through which the sin came into the world, and what is the original sin. In order to understand this, Jordan Peterson is expressing his struggle to discover the answer to these questions also. And in this clip I will try to help to understand what this means, what is the original sin, what is the fruit, what is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, what is the serpent. And divine principle has a chapter in the part 1 of the divine principle is called the human fall, chapter 2 of the first part, and has and in this chapter is explained these things. So let's first watch the video, and after we will discuss what the divine principle in order to answer these questions.
Okay, so I've got a question for you about that pattern in the story of Adam and Eve. So in We Who Wrestle with God, I take apart the story of Adam and Eve in more depth than I've managed previously, delving into the notion that the fundamental sin of both Adam and Eve is one of pride, right? That's their temptation by Lucifer, the serpent. Their temptation to become as gods, which is the temptation that's first offered to Eve, right? And she accepts that. Her desire is to establish the foundations of the moral order subjectively, which is happening everywhere in the world at the moment, by the way, and promoted not least by like hyper-inclusive women. So that's very interesting to see. A sin of pride, she's going to take it to herself to establish the moral foundations. And then she attempts that, and then Adam exceeds, which is his sign, the sign of his prideful weakness. And so you have Adam and Eve as the archetypes of male and female. You have Adam as the namer and the subduer, and Eve as the helpmeet, so to speak, the ezer kenegdo, I think is the phrase, who brings things to his attention that he's left outside of the ordered structure, right? And then each of those patterns has its associated sin. Now, in the story of Adam and Eve, suffering and death enters the world with sin. Now, I've really been trying to figure that out because on the one hand, no, because everything dies and suffers. And on the other hand, well, wait a minute. A lot of suffering, especially the unbearable sort, is brought about by misaligned aim and pride and the desire to usurp. Like a lot of it. Like, who knows? Well, that's the question. Who knows how much? And so then you might ask yourself, if we aimed upward unceasingly, if we were perfect, as Christ calls upon his followers to be in the gospel accounts, what would become of suffering? And what would become of death? Now, you have this interesting idea in the Gospels that Christ's radical exception of the terrible preconditions for being produced the victory over death and evil.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's something about that that's right, because the more you open yourself up to the realities of the dark side of life, death and malevolence, let's say, clearly the more capable you are of dealing with it. And we don't know the ultimate extent of that. And we don't know what it would mean to, this is where my knowledge just ends, as I tried to indicate to Dawkins, these texts, move out into the ineffable.
Okay, so let's continue. Now let's answer the questions through divine principle. Let's study from the chapter 2, from the human fall. Wait a minute. Okay, this chapter has actually 6 sections, but we will talk just about the first one, which is called the root of sin, because this chapter deals with the questions that Jordan Peterson has. This chapter. So okay, let's go into this chapter, into this section. Okay, we see in the first picture Adam and Eve. So it starts like that. All people have an original mind which inclines them to reject evil and pursue goodness. So people have original mind. Yet, even without our being aware of it, we are driven by evil forces to perform evil deeds, which in our innermost heart we do not want to do. So we have these two minds. People are affected by the good forces and the evil forces. In Christianity, the master of these evil forces is known as Satan. We have been utterly unable to liquidate the forces of Satan because we have not understood Satan's identity or how he came to exist. To uproot evil completely and thereby end sinful history and usher in an era of goodness, we must first expose the motivation and origin of Satan and recognize the destruction he has wrought in human life. So this section doesn't explain just how sin came into, what is the original sin, what is the fruit. One thing also, in order to understand those two answers, to answer those two questions, we need to answer also the question of who is Satan and how he came to exist and what is his motivation. This is one of the key questions to understand the whole picture. This explanation of the human fall will clarify these issues. So section 1, the root of sin, that we are going to study now. No one has known the root of sin, which lies deep within and ceaselessly drives people toward the way of evil. So many people assumes what the original sin, the root of sin might be. However, nobody is convinced 100%. Let's go more further to discover this. On the basis of the Bible, many believe that Adam and Eve's eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was the root of sin. To this day, many have thought that the fruit was that of an actual tree. But would God, the loving parent of humanity, make a fruit which could cause the fall to look so attractive and place it where his children could reach it so easily? So the question is here, if this fruit is so attractive and but at the same time it's so dangerous because it can poison you, why God put it in the place so the people can reach it so easily, Adam and Eve can reach it so easily? In the Matthew chapter 15 verses 11 and 18, Jesus said, "Not that which goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth. What comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a man." So Jesus is saying here that the fruit cannot be something physical like an apple or some other fruit, that because it's not that you eat it makes you wicked, but something that come out from your heart, from your mouth, that is making you wicked because it's coming from your heart. So the fruit cannot be something physical, some cannot be something that one eats. So it is also Jesus also destroyed the notion that God made fruit and put it for people to reach it so easily and eat it. So that's okay. Let's go next. Original sin has been inherited from this act of our first human ancestors. Yet how can something one eats cause a sin which can be transmitted to one's descendants? Or this once again, when you eat something, if you eat an apple, is not something that is going, you don't get a sickness that is transmitted to your descendants for thousands of generations. So would the God of love test humans so mercilessly by a means that could cause their death? So in a sense, this also discredit the idea that the fruit is a physical, a literal fruit, because this puts God make God into a monster. Like God is testing people. It's like putting you put a delicious something, a piece of cake on the table so your children can reach it easily, and you go somewhere and you have a camera that you watch everything, and you watching from the camera what your children will do. This cake actually look delicious, but is poisoned. So the analogy is like you go somewhere and you're watching your children from a distance through, let's say, from a camera, and whether your children will, you say for your children, don't eat, you will die. But on the other hand, you're going and you're watching, will they eat or not? And you're putting it easy for them to access. So this is the type of situation that we are talking here. So God is, we cannot imagine that God can do such a thing, so can test people in such a way. So if God would do test people in such a way, it would make God into a moral monster. It will be not worthy to worship this God. So that's, and nobody believed that God would do something like this. Adam and Eve would not have risked their lives and disobeyed God only to obtain some delicacy. So one more argument that this is not the fruit is not literal is because people, Adam and Eve, understood that this, if you this, for example, if you give people food and say this is poison, you will die from this food, people will not eat it, even if it look delicious. Even if they are very hungry, they know they will die from this. So people don't do this. So Adam and Eve as well. If God would say this apple is you don't need to eat this apple because you will die, of course they will not eat. They have something other things to eat, but they understand that they will die, so they will not eat. So this is okay. This discredits the idea that the fruit is literal. Therefore, we can surmise that the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was not a literal fruit, but must have been something so extraordinarily stimulating that even the fear of death did not deter them from grasping it. So this cannot be a literal fruit. Is something else. Why should we stubbornly adhere to a literal interpretation of the fruit when so much of the Bible makes use of symbolism and metaphor? In Mark chapter 4 verses 33 to 34, Jesus says, with many is said in this verse, with many similar parables Jesus spoke the word to them as much as they could understand. He did not say anything to them without using a parable. So the Bible is full of the parables. So original story of in the Garden of Eden also is we don't need to take it literally because Bible relies on parables and metaphors. To learn what the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil represents, let us first investigate the tree of life, which stood next to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So why we need to investigate the tree of life, but not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Because the fruit that was eaten was from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But why we go to investigate the tree of life? It's because in the Bible there is no references to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil anymore. Just in the beginning, just God said, from this tree do not eat. So the tree of life, there are references to many in the Bible. The Bible talks about the tree of life more often. In other places have. So that's I wanted to understand what the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We need to understand what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil means, so we can understand what the fruit means. But in order to understand what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is, we need to understand the tree of life. We are doing a sort of investigation, like a detective. We have some clues, and we try to connect the clues and get the conclusion. Find what would be the right conclusion. So because tree of life was next to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, understanding what the tree of life means, we will understand also what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil means. So these trees also should symbolize something. If the fruit is not a literal fruit, the trees also are not literal trees. According to the Bible, the hope of fallen people is to attain the tree of life. Thus, the Israelites of the Old Testament age looked to the tree of life as their hope. So, in the Old Testament, in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 12, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Likewise, the historical hope of all Christians, we're going now to the New Testament, is to partake of the tree of life. So the tree of life is talked about in New Testament as well. Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life. Revelation chapter 22, verse 14. When Adam and Eve fell, God blocked his path to the tree of life by placing the cherubim with a flaming sword to guard it. Sorry. We can deduce Adam's hope before the fall was the tree of life. So in Genesis chapter 3, verse 24, God is putting a cherubim with flaming sword, so Adam wouldn't be able to reach to the tree of life. So that's give us the hint that Adam wanted to reach the tree of life. That's why God put this cherubim with a sword, so they wouldn't go to this tree. So the desire of Adam, it was to reach this tree. Okay, let's see. Sorry. What was the hope of immature Adam as he was growing toward perfection? He must have hoped to realize God's ideal of creation by growing to perfection. Interesting, if you ask children always say we want to become like our parents, we want to become big adults. They always have desire to become adults. So this is actually desire of Adam as well. His desire is to realize God's ideal of creation by growing to perfection. So the tree of life in fact symbolizes an ideal man who has fully realized the ideal of creation. It thus symbolizes perfected Adam. So that's what we can discover from the meaning of the tree of life. Desire of an immature person to become mature, perfect, to grow, to reach the ideal of creation. Man of life, the tree of life actually symbolizes a man of life, as well a woman of life. A fruitful tree symbolizes a fruitful man. We can go and research more about this. Biblical meaning of trees as human spiritual growth. So in Genesis chapter 1 verse 28 is saying, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So the word be fruitful. It's God is saying, for giving the commandment to Adam and Eve, be fruitful, is implying that they are like a tree who produce fruits. So human being also need to implying that human being are kind of like trees. In Psalms chapter 1 verses 1 to 3, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. So again, it's referring to people as trees. So we're getting more and more arguments that trees are symbols of people in the Bible. In Jeremiah chapter 17 verses 7 to 8, blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water, that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not cease to bear fruit. Again, man is symbolized as metaphorically as a tree. John chapter 15 verse 5, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, it is that bears much fruit. Again, Jesus said, this is Jesus' words, saying, I am the vine, you are the branches. In Matthew chapter 13 verses 20 to 21 and 23, the parable of the sower. The one who received the seed that fell on rocky places is the man who hears the word and at once receives it with joy. But since he has no root, he lasts only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, he quickly falls away. But the one who received the seed that fell on good soil is the man who hears the word and understands it. He produces a crop yielding 160 or 30 times what was sown. This is one more parable that associates human being with trees. God did not create Adam to be alone. He also created Eve to be Adam's spouse. Just as there was a tree in the garden which symbolized the man in perfection, there also should have been a tree which represented woman, striving to realize the ideal of creation as well. So we now discovering what the tree of the knowledge of good and evil means. We understand God created Adam and Eve. The tree of life symbolized the ideal man. The tree of life symbolized Adam. That means that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil symbolizes Eve. So these trees are not real trees, literal trees, but they symbolize Adam and Eve. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, standing beside the tree of life, was this tree. In Genesis chapter 2 verses 16 to 17, and the Lord God commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it, you will surely die. Genesis chapter 3, verse 3. You must not eat from fruit from the tree that it is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. One more thing about tree. Tree symbolize human being. I think garden also symbolize, garden as a whole symbolize human being, because they say the tree is in the middle of the garden, but we will understand why. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil represents immature Eve prior to the fall. So immature Adam has these two desires. One desire is to abstain from he need to become a perfect Adam. He has desire to be pursued and fulfilled, to pursue the tree of life, to become a perfect Adam. And he need, in order to reach this tree, he need to abstain from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This is the situation he has. Okay, now we're going to study about who is Satan. What is the serpent? Who is the serpent? In the Bible, we read that the serpent tempted Eve to commit sin. Let us investigate the true identity of the serpent based on the Genesis account. The serpent described in the Bible was able to converse with human beings. He was able to talk. It caused the fall of human beings who are spiritual beings. So human beings have spiritual spirits. They have a soul. They have spirits. So the serpent was able to cause the fall of humans. Serpent also, furthermore, the serpent knew the will of God, which strictly forbade human beings to eat the fruit. He knew what the will of God was, because when he came to Eve, he said, "Didn't God said that?" What he said? He was talking to Eve as though he knew what was the commandment. He knew what was the purpose for what God created them. So he knew the will of God. So he wasn't just. He's a very interesting serpent. So in Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 is saying, "That great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." So if we see he was thrown down here means he was in heaven, and was thrown down on earth. So originally he lived in heaven, and his angels means that he was the kind of leader of angels. He was also angel. Who is the leader of angels? Is archangel. So it's this verse from Revelation 12:9 implies that the serpent lived in heaven, and he was part of the angelic world. He lived in a spiritual realm, lived in heaven with his angels. So This is compelling evidence that the being the serpent symbolizes was a spiritual being, originally created with a good purpose, who later fell and became Satan. There are no beings endowed with such characteristics other than angels. The verse, God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to pits of neither gloom, support the conclusion that the serpent which tempted human beings and sinned is an angel. So we have a suspect in the we are detective and we already have a suspect. The serpent, we understand who the serpent is. In the Bible, in Jude chapter 6 verse 7, we read that the angels did not keep their own position but left their proper dwelling, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise acted immorally. In the King James Version it's saying fornication, and indulged in unnatural lust. It's saying here that angels is talking about angels here. That didn't keep their own position but left their proper dwelling, just as Sodom and Gomorrah. So in this verse is implying that angels are able to commit actions, sins, immoral things, just the ones which were committed in Sodom and Gomorrah. So we discover more about the angel. Angel is capable of committing immoral sins, especially sexual sins. From this passage, we can infer that the angel fell as a result of an illicit sexual relationship. We read that before they fell, Adam and Eve were both naked and were not ashamed. Genesis chapter 2, verse 25. After the fall, however, Adam and Eve felt ashamed of their nakedness and sewed fig leaves into aprons to cover their sexual parts. Genesis chapter 3, verse 7. I remember one person told me that fig leaves are very similar to a person's hand. Also have like 5 points, like 5 fingers. So this might be, I don't know exactly that. It might be why they say fig leaves, because fig leaves symbolize like a hand. So it might mean not really literally they put some fig leaves, they cover their lower parts with fig leaves, but they cover their lower parts with hands. It is human nature to conceal one's faults. Thus, the act of covering their lower parts shows that these parts and not their mouths were the source of their shame. So we're discovering the instruments of the crime, the weapon with which the crime was committed. So Adam and Eve's sexual parts were the instrument of their sinful deeds. So when somebody, for example, a child eats prohibited, you said don't eat this cake, and you find that cake is eaten, and you catch the child eating the cake. Child will quickly close his mouth with his hands usually when you catch him in an act, or if he has the cake in hands, he will hide his hands. So that's how people usually behave when they are caught in the act. They try to cover the area, the parts of the body which are responsible for the crime. So in this sense, Adam and Eve, they covered their low parts. So we can make a conclusion that they committed the fall with their low parts, with the sexual areas, sexual organs. So in the world before the human fall, the only act one would be willing to carry out, even at the clear risk of one's life, is the act of love. So let's go next. Love should be the most precious and sacred act, but is often regarded with shame and even contempt, because the sexual act was the very cause of the fall. So so this also gives the answer to the question. We know if the God would say don't eat a literal fruit because you will die, they wouldn't eat because they know they will die. But this was some desire which is stronger than death. They had more. Adam and Eve had the desire much stronger than death, that they were willing to die to fulfill this desire. So this desire is can be just, which is stronger. Such a strong desire can be desire for love. And this in their case was illicit love. Thus far we have explained that an angel seduced human beings to fall, and that both the angel and the human beings fell due to illicit sexual love. So the purpose of serpent, of Satan, is to make Adam and Eve fall. And he understood that through sexual relations he would be able to do that. So he used this method to make Adam and Eve fall. We can deduce that the illicit sexual relationship must have involved the angel and human beings. So it was something in sexual way, relationship between Adam and Eve. Therefore Jesus said in John chapter 8 verse 44, "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires." So here is implying that Adam and Eve, descendants of Adam and Eve, all humanity are descendants from the Satan. That's Satan's desire. It was, and Jesus say here there's a desire, implying that desire for illicit love. That's desire that came to all humanity, all descendants of Adam and Eve, from the Satan, from archangel. The fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil signifies the love of Eve. So we are discovering what the fruit symbolize. Eve was to reach full maturity only after going through a period of growth. Okay, she supposed to maintain, she's supposed to not eat the fruit before she become mature. As a tree multiplies by its fruit, Eve should have borne good children through her godly love. So in the way the trees multiplies through seeds, Eve supposed to become a godly woman, perfect woman, and multiply, make children, godly children. However, she become immature. She has a satanic love, and she multiplied evil lineage, evil children. Then she would have received the essence of God's divinity and multiplied a good lineage. Instead, she bore evil children through her satanic love. Hence, she received the essence of Satan's evil nature and multiplied an evil lineage from which our sinful society descended. So when Jordan Peterson said that the original sin is pride, actually it's much more subtle than that. Pride is also the result of the original sin. It's not the original sin. It's the consequences of the original sin. All other sins came about. So pride is one of the consequences. But the original sin is this satanic love. Is the fornication. Is a satanic relationship of sexual love between Eve and Archangel and Eve and Adam. Okay, let's go next. So Eve's eating the fruit denotes that she consummated a satanic love relationship with an angel, which bound her on blood ties to him. So when the sexual relationships happen, the man and woman are developing blood ties relationships. So this kind of relationship developed between Eve and the archangel. The the serpent first gave the fruit to Eve. So this means that Satan and Eve had a relationship, and Eve inherited this satanic nature from this relationship. And then she had a relationship, being already fallen, she had a relationship with Adam, and he also became tainted by this evil relationship. Satan was able to multiply since himself through Eve to Adam, and through them to all humanity. So the root of sin was not that the first human ancestors ate a fruit, but rather that they had an illicit sexual relationship with an angel, symbolized by a serpent. Consequently, they could not multiply God's good lineage, but instead multiplied Satan's evil lineage. There is ample evidence which helps us recognize that the root of human sin stems from sexual immorality. Only a sexual relationship which binds one in ties of blood can perpetuate the lineal descent of original sin from one generation to the next. Religions that emphasize the need to purge sin regard fornication as a cardinal sin, and they have taught the virtues of chastity and restraint in order to curb it. This is an indication that the root of sin is found in lustful desires. The Israelites performed the rite of circumcision as a condition for sanctification and qualification as God's chosen people. Sexual promiscuity is a principal cause of the downfall of numerous heroes, patriots, and nations. We may be able to eradicate all other evils, but no one can prevent the plague of sexual promiscuity, and lifestyles become more comfortable and indolent. So we see the statistics from 1995. I think in 2025, this statistic will be much more high with the advent of internet and easy access to sexual content in internet. So in 15 years old, Over 20% of 15 years old of female and males already has experience teenage sex. And here almost 50-60% in 17 years old of 17 years old experience teen sex, and 80%, around 80 something percent, and almost 80% females in 19 years old experience teenage sex. So this is a big problem. This is one reason that original sin, the root of sin, is related to sex. Therefore, the hope of an ideal world is an empty dream as long as this root of all evils has not been eradicated at its source. Christ at his second advent must be able to solve this problem once and for all. So the original sin is not disobedience. The people disobey God because they wanted to eat fruit. God said no, and that because they disobey, this is the original sin. This is not doesn't stand the test of scrutiny. So is much more subtle than that. So that's divine principle conclusion is the original sin is fornication, sexual relationship which happened between human beings and Satan, or Archangel Lucifer, which later became Satan. And this root of sin become the original sin, it's created a lineage, descendants. All humanity, they are a lineage of Satan. So that's the root of sin according to divine principle. I hope many people understood. Could help many people to understand what the original sin is, what the fruit means, who is Satan, who is the serpent, and what's meant eating the fruit, what means the trees, what's the meaning of the trees in the Garden of Eden. And thank you for staying with me, and I wish you all a good day.